Good evening. The Who's in Sydney today were on at Randwick at headquarters. It was given out a slow 6. I think it stayed that way all day. The rail was in the normal position. Very still day in Sydney. No breeze at all. If there was, it was so light it didn't matter. And the track played off the fence. There were no leaders that won, and most of the winners, or all of the winners, came from more or less midfield, just off the, not far off the pace, but mostly in the bigger fields, midfieldish, getting off heels, coming down the outside. And of course, we saw one winner, which we'll get to later, Mount Nebo, who was the favourite. Didn't start favourite, I'm sorry. Windswept started favourite, the resumer in that race, but we put it up favourite, Mount Nebo, and it missed a kick by a good 4 or 5 lengths and still managed to get home. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, race 1, they said there was 104.9 on the screen and about a couple less in the marketplace, that's all, maybe 102, about 103. And this race was won by the favourite, What About. It sat back in second last position, third last position, near the fence coming down the side, but ridden by Nippy Nash. He was able to get off the fence before turning for home and go in between runners, shoulder his way clear after topping the rise and went away and won easily by 2 lengths. We put it up $1.70, 11/8 on chance, and we got it out to $1.85, which was laid on, and the $1.80 and the $1.75 was laid on, starting the price we put it up $1.70. The second pick in the race was Northern Glory, number 1. It led on the fence Meteorus from barrier 1, and Northern Glory was directly behind it from barrier 2. Both of them stayed close to the fence. Both were in the worst section of the ground. Northern Glory actually getting inside Meteorus, which wouldn't have helped its chances. But by the same token, I don't think it would have beat the winner if it was off the fence. It was a fairly strong win, and Sanzio, number 4, ran second. It was in the 1-1 position all the way, but as I say, the winner won very well. Captains had a bad result on the first race. The second race, this was won by the top weight, Arabian Gold, ridden by proper Peter Roble, and it sat in 6th position, getting a lovely suck up, looking at the 5 leaders, and one of those sitting in third hole was the third pick, as it turned out, the favourite, I should say, and that was Stamina. And when they topped the rise, it had gone to the lead token from barrier 1, and it set a fairly good pace up in the lead, with Houston, who was very well backed, sitting on its outside. And as I say, in 4th position, up near the lead, was Stamina. When they got over the rise, Stamina was able to get past the leaders fairly easily, and sucking up right behind it was Arabian Gold, who beat it last start at Canterbury. And at Canterbury, of course, Stamina could have been a bit stiff, but today, the runs, the way the track played, I think had something to do with it, coming off its back, but it did beat it easily at the finish by 2 lengths, the top weight Arabian Gold beating Stamina, and they got right away from the others. Of course, these were the 2-year-olds over the mile, and they were spread right out. It was 6.3 lengths back to the third horse, Quayside, who settled down in last position on the outside of the runner and came down the outside, best part of the track, but as I say, was beaten a long way. Arabian Gold, we put it up 5-2 second pick, 5-2 bar it. It got out to $5, which you wouldn't see on the flux. And by the way, the flux in this race, on the screen, they said there was 104.2. Now, there was at least 8 less in the marketplace, about 96 only we gave here. And there was one of them straight away, Arabian Gold, best flux 460, but there was $5 given. Another runner, Houston, 550 given, best flux $5. And of course, the favourite, Stamina, best flux 330. Well, the blind man could have had $3.50. But as I say, after they got over the rise and flattened out, Stamina had got past the others, and the top weight Arabian Gold levelled up and beat it by 2 lengths with 6.3 lengths, repeating myself back to Quayside. Houston, who sat outside the lead, it dropped off and finished up running 5th, but was beaten 10 odd lengths. And the rider, I think a representative of the stable, saying that it might have been flattened from its run at Canterbury on Wednesday, and now it is going for a spell, and it pulled up with a poor recovery rate. Race 3, 104.7 on the screen, 99 only in the marketplace, and Queen's Elect, again emphasising how the track favoured horses who were, back in the field and coming around or swooping down the outside, because this winner, Queen's Elect, it sat, ridden by Nippy Nash, it sat back in about third last position, 3 wide from barrier 8 in a field of 10, and it came right down the outside to beat Recoinage, who sat midfield off the fence. It had got up to the leaders after straightening and got past them after they topped the rise, or a little bit after, and down the outside we saw Queen's Elect vigorously ridden in the Nippy Nash style to beat it by about a neck on the line, and it was 2.2 lengths back to the third horse, and that was Amaleret. Now, this race was we could easily run this race again, and even though the margin between the second horse and the third horse was 2 lengths, there were 2 runners which, after you watch the tapes, you will obviously see were very unlucky. And look, you can make a case to say that the third horse, ridden by Killer Kath O'Hara, when they topped the rise, it was back in last position, and she went to go for a middle split, and she, whilst the winner was out in clear running, she lost all of her momentum. The winner was going forward while she was going nowhere, and when she did get clear, she was held up to about the 200. She found the line very strongly, and it was it should have obviously finished. Well, look, it might have only, it could have been right in the finish if it wasn't held up. And of course, we all saw another runner in this race, Dazzler, who settled down in second last position. Dazzler from barrier 5 on the fence, turning for home and looking for rails runs where the going was inferior, and it simply never ever got a run in this race. It went to the line without ever being extended. So, as I say, even though the winner came from well back, it was run this race again, and you could easily get a few different results. The Pretty Famous, well, she's going for a spell after today. The connections saying that she didn't run the 1400. How was she going to do that? And of course, the best pluck in this race about her was about 370, I think. Well, there was $4 given in the marketplace. Gullible, who was beaten easily by Pretty Famous last start. There was plenty of money for Gullible to say that she'd run a better race today, and as much as $6 was given. We put it up a 4-to-1 chance, $5, and got out to 6, but only started around about the $4.60 mark. They even they took the $4.60 at one stage for a good bit of section, but it started that price after, as I say, $6 being bet. There were a few runners backed in the race. The winner, extremely well backed, Queen's Elect. We put it up a $4.80 chance, 15-4, second favourite, and it got out to $5.50 and came into its opening quote at one stage, $4.80, but got back out to $5 towards the end of betting, and started third favourite in the race, Nippy Nash being the postilion. Now, we got to race 4, and they said there was 106 on the screen, and that was just about right. There was about, if anything, maybe only 1% less in the marketplace. And this is the race that I was talking to you about earlier on, about Mount Nebo. Now, of course, it came out 4 and 5 lengths last, ridden by Serge Lindsay, who after that day when the Stipes had him up for handing up the lead at Gosford, all he loves to do is get out and lead, this boy. Now, as I say, it missed a kick by 4 lengths and was a clear last at the 600, had caught the field well before the turn, but still in last position. And when you see the head on, of course, they fanned, and he was fairly wide on the track, getting inside, as it turned out, Red Dynamite, who was 3 wide with cover. But I wonder, even though it looked, and of course it was a good win after missing the kick, I wonder if it had jumped. It did have barrier 2. As it turned out, Party Rocker, the 100-to-1 chance, who ran 16.1 lengths last, it was able to come across from barrier 10 in the field of 11 and find the 18 pence, find the fence, and coming across and sitting on its outside was Rastro, who also has got a bit of speed. I wonder if if Mount Nebo had jumped, because the runner that had barrier 1 was Mishani Persuader, and it settled down second beside Mount Nebo. It was last on the fence. So if Mount Nebo does come out of the barrier, it leads most probably on the fence, tries to hold out Party Rocker, and I think he would have had trouble getting off the fence, this young boy, and he mightn't have got the cash. We'll never know, but that is a scenario, of course, that can be looked at. It might have, as it turned out, been a blessing in disguise. But as I say, after missing the kick by that far, got a middle split, went through. Now, we put it up a $3.50 chance favourite, Mount Nebo, but the captains quickly reached for it and got it out to as much as $4.60, coming back into about $4.20, but got back out to $4.60 towards the end of betting. Very hard to lay at the finish of betting, but at one stage you could get whatever you wanted out of it. Neudart, the top weight, who settled 3 back on the fence and finished closest to the fence, running second last, beaten only 2.2 lengths. So the first 10 runners, there were 11 runners in the race, it was beaten 16 lengths, the horse that led on the fence, Party Rocker, and of the other 10, when they hit the line, there was only 2.2 lengths between them, and the runner that was closest to the fence, it did have barrier 3, settled 3 back on the fence, was Neudart. It wasn't the place to be. and the betting suggested that it wasn't going to win because its fluctuations, Neudart's fluctuations were $4.40 out to $7.50, a 7-2 chance out to 13-2, and as I say, ran accordingly. The runner that was extremely well backed here could have been, well, it obviously was fancied, and it's a good runner. It's got potential, I suppose. I'm talking about Windswept. It finished up starting favourite. We put it up a 4-1 chance, $5, and it was constantly backed all the way through betting, starting $4-1, $4, 3-1 favourite. It jumped well, but then it was eased back to third last position in the right section of the track and pulled widest on the turn. It finished up, it ran fifth and only beaten, say, 1.1 lengths or so. It wasn't far away, but the winner did miss the kick, and as I say, came from behind it. But we'll never know. If the favourite, the winner, Mount Nebo, had led on the fence, he might have been in the worst section of the track, and as it turned out, mightn't have got the cash. What else was backed here? Well, it was the best back, Windswept, and there was bits of section for a few of the others. We had 5%, as I say, up our sleeves, but number one didn't have a price, and really it was no good. Most captains, I think, would have lost on the race. Race 5, 101.7 on the screen, few less in the marketplace, about 98, and the winner here, Falconia, it was the first runner backed in this race. I suppose with horseman Huey Bowman up, and where it was drawn, barrier 8 in a field of 10 obviously had something to do with it. Plus, it was on slightly better ground than it's been running in its last couple of starts, and it was third up today. It sat midfield. Leading in this race, or one off the fence, was Lady Ladouce, the 40-1 chance. Party Dress, who had barrier 1, only beaten, as it turned out, about 2.1 lengths, had barrier 1 and went through and led on the fence and never left it. So its effort was a lot better than it looked. Sitting third was Arrowette from barrier 3. And then we had Mariana, the runner from Queensland, sitting in fourth position. Back on the fence, Project Compassion from barrier 2, and on its outside, the winner, getting a good run with Bowman aboard, Horseman Bowman, and he was able to get off their heels turning for home, get into the right section of the track, and just hold on and beat the runner that came from second last, also a Queenslander coming down from Brisbane, Hidden Kisses, who made up a mile of ground from second last position to just fail by 0.2 of a length. Only needed another couple of hops, it would have got the chocolates, but as we know, the winning post at Randwick has been in the same place for a long time. Starting favourite in this race, and more or less having every chance, it was about 3 lengths behind the last, the winner and Project Compassion. They were a good 3 lengths behind the first 4 runners, and then there was a break to the last 4 runners, one of them being the favourite Total Attraction, ridden by Nippy Nash. It had every possible chance. He was looking at Huey all the way. When they topped the rise, he just simply he got into the right section of the track, but he simply wasn't good enough to run the or win the race. And coming off his back and beating him home for second position, as I said, was Hidden Kisses, making up all that ground. It started favourite, Total Attraction. As soon as we put the market up, $4.20, it went up Avery. 13-4 the field, we said. It started $3.50 or even $40. $3.40, fairly hard to get, very well backed. Cradle Me, It missed the kick slightly and settled down a long last, where it was always going to be. It made up a lot of ground. It finished, was only beaten 2.2 lengths, but run the race again. The way the track played, repeating myself, you would get a few different results in that race as well. Race 6, 105 on the screen, 102 in the marketplace, and See the World. It's the runner that got the cash here. I was like a fool. I paid the penalty. I was $6 when they jumped, returned $5. We put it up a 5-to-1 chance, 6-to-1, $6 See the World. Got quickly out to $7, but then was constantly back this runner from $7. As I say, it did touch $5 at one stage, but towards the finish was fairly easy to get $5.50. But like a fool, I was $6 and towards the end of betting. I suppose one of the reasons it got out towards the end of betting was that captains and others knew where it was drawn in barrier 3 and said, oh, well, he's not going to be right on the fence, but it could be close to it in between runners. And Nippy Nash, well, he was far too clever for that, because after they had gone 2 or 3 furlongs, 2.5 furlongs, Nash was in 4th position and nowhere near the fence. He was 4 wide, but half carting on the back of Sainthood, who was resuming from a spell today, the 40-to-1 rank outsider. Now, leading on the fence was Master Harry. Sam Clipperton, someone forgot to tell him the 18 pence was no good. He came across and found the lead. He finished off it in the straight, but it wasn't the place to be. As I say, Sainthood was up there 3 wide, and in between Sainthood and the Master Harry was Pentasia, who started favourite. We put it up favourite. It started favourite, and it dropped out and ran 3rd last, not beaten far. But the winner turned out, it was a great ride. It was in 4th position, half carting on the back of Sainthood. When they, well after they topped the rise, Nash still had plenty of horse underneath him, and he got stuck into it when they really flattened out a furlong and a half, or maybe a furlong from home, and he finished up beating the leader, Master Harry, by 1.3 lengths, with the runner that was a clear last at one stage of the race at the after they'd gone 3 furlongs, or round about the 700 metre mark. The 3rd horse, Griffin, another runner brought down by Mr. Heathcote from Brisbane. It was 3 lengths behind the 2nd last horse, and it made up a lot of ground in between runners into 3rd hole, beaten 1.4, and it was well back towards the end of betting. We put it up a funny price, $8, $9, well, $9. That's not $9.50. It went up, and got out to as much as 15 at one stage, but came in and only started around about $11 chance, or maybe 12 hard to get towards the end of betting. The winner, as I say, was extremely well backed. Havana Ray got out in the market from $8.50 out to 13, back into 11. Youthful Jack didn't have a price, 13 out to 20, although taken towards the end of betting. Border Rebel, they took $21. Now, Pentasia, as I say, it went up the favourite. We put it up at $3.70 favourite, 11 to 4 the field, and we reached for it and got it out to $5 towards the end of betting Pentasia. But in the last minute of betting, which is a long time on a racetrack, in the last minute, it was $5, $4.80 and $4.60 taken, and it was very hard to get the $4.40 towards the end of betting. No $4.60 left. Griffin, as I say, was back. Master Harry was back, $10 given, started $8.50. My Destiny, $8.50 out to 11. Fun Tales, a stablemate to the 3rd horse. They took $17, although it started that price. Saintwood was 41, and Soledad went up $7 into 650, but back out to $7 or into 650 when they jumped. The winner was given a great ride, and that was one of the reasons it got home. Race 7, 101.7 on the screen, a few less in the marketplace, around about 98, and this was won by Iggy Pop, the runner that got trapped wide at Rose Hill last start, and it was extremely well backed, $5.50 given, and it only started $4.80. Very hard to get Iggy Pop in this race. As I say, we bet losing figures only 98. These were the flux. Madam Nash, we reached for it very quickly. $3.50 out to $6, back into $5.50. Eulalona went from $7.50 out to $8.50. Lucripidus, who only seems to get going when the races are all over, we put it up $4.80. They said it was going to be ridden closer today. Well, it settled down. It settled down in third last position. It just hasn't any pace. $4.80 out to $7, back into $6. Ghost Protocol, very well back. Started favourite. We put it up a 9-2 chance, $5.50. Got out to, which you wouldn't see, $6. Only started $4.60, or maybe started $4.80. Iggy Pop, bet $5.50. Only started $4.80. O'Reilly's Prize. Well, this will tell you how Madam Nash. It's hard to get past her, although plenty of runners did at the finish. But it ran along. She ran along like she generally does, but didn't get the good break on them. That was a different field from what it was running against at Warwick Farm. But it tried to go with it, O'Reilly's Prize, and it was backed from $51 into $26, O'Reilly's Prize, who was having his third run back today. His previous two runs were very ordinary. It, as I say, tried to make the leader run along, looking at it all the way, 2.5 to 3 lengths behind it. They finish up being beaten about 30 lengths. So Madam Nash, I suppose, it's going for a spell after day, and Madam Nash did pull up mildly lame. She would have had enough. We got down to Scottish Border. It was $10 out to 14. No, what am I talking about? It was always $21 Scottish Border. Trajet, $10 out to $14, taken into 13, back to 14. Platinum Jack, 17 out to 31, back to 26. Bag of Nickels, 50 out to 100, and the Big IM, 40 out to 60. Very skinny, and the winner very well backed. It sat back in midfield in about 7th position off the fence when they were coming down the side. Madam Nash was always, even down the back section of the track, was always 3 horses off the fence. And when they came down the side, steered by Nash, who's a great navigator, he was always, as I say, that margin, and coming to the turn, maybe 5 off the fence, with runners getting up inside him, but still well off the fence. One of them travelling very, very easily and looking, I suppose, you could easily say the winner, and that was Eulalona, but it just didn't find the line. It had got up inside Madam Nash turning for home, with all of the other runners that were well back in the field starting to come wide, and one of those, and was most probably the widest, was Iggy Pop, who, after they topped the rise, had raced up to Eulalona, about the furlong pole, got past it, and it was up to Lucripidus in the last bit when all the others were a bit tired. It just keeps on coming, but as I say, the post always comes before it, and it ran into second hole, beaten 0.8 of a length, and Eulalona held on for third, beaten 1.1, and it plugged away all the way. Scottish Border running an honest race into fourth hole, beaten 2.2 lengths. That was about that race. We came to the last, and the Avery got the cash here, but I must say this was a huge result for the captains, because the Grumble and Grunters, they didn't want to have a bar of Eaglestein. It did look a bird. Eaglestein, and we put it up the $3 favourite, 2 to 1 the field, we said. And the punters went, boo, no, you can have it. At the finish of betting, it was $4. I think they returned at $4.20. The end of betting, you could have $4.60. You couldn't give it away. It lobbed in to the position where it was always more or less going to be, and that was from that barrier, from barrier 10 in a field of 16, was always with Nippy Nash aboard, knowing how the track was playing, settled down in midfield, always off the fence, on the back, more or less, of the second horse, Hendricus, who was sensationally backed from $9 into $4.80. Of course, knowing it was where it was drawn, there were 16 runners that had the outside alley. It was always going to be off the fence, the place to be, and most probably get cover, which it did. It led McClintock, which was most probably the prediction of most people's maps. It came across and led. Sitting on its outside was River of Salvation, who was always going to go forward, and on its outside, 3 wide, from another wide alley, who was always going to be up near the lead and was extremely well backed, Fireball, from $14 into $9.50, or even $9. It's at third, 3 wide. Having a good look at those 3 runners was the top weight Zakynthos Imprints, who were about $21. It's only started 17. You wouldn't see the 21 in the fluck. And then we had a few looking at it. We had a Bureau who copped a couple of checks and was slightly held up and pulled up with speedy cuts in between runners, a bit awkwardly placed. On its outside, more or less, was the Hendricus, but on its back was the favourite, the easing favourite, Eaglestein, who's a very nice, strong, big galloper, an import. It'll win more races. After they topped the rise, Nash shouldered his way clear after missing the kick. I think it was Samui Lad who missed the kick and then was trapped way off the track without any cover all the way. I think it could have been the runner. I've only watched it once or twice quickly at the track. It was the runner that he shouldered out of the way, and then of course Hendricus had got past, was looming up to the weakening leaders, but Nash had Hendricus well in his sights, and he said, oh well, I've got you, and he finished up beating him by 1.5 lengths. And of course running on well, resuming from a spell today, was Marden, right down the outside in the right section of the track. So it's run, of course, the stayer resuming, and in the right section of the track, its run was flattered, but it did make up a lot of ground into third hole, beaten 3.5 lengths. There were runners that finished close to the fence, one of them being Happy Huzzy, who drew barrier 2, and I think Magic Weekend, well, he might have been a bit off the fence, but he did have barrier 1. He was on the fence coming down the side. That was about the Mother and the Glory. And in that last race, they said there was 105.3 on the screen in the marketplace, 5% less. Well, for instance, the winner, they returned at $4.20. You could have $4.60. And there was another runner, I think they only returned at about $10 or $11, Happy Huzzy. Well, it was $14 also at the end of betting, plus a couple of others which were a little bit longer. That was about the meeting. As I say, the fence wasn't the place to be. All of the winners came from well behind. I hope you had a winning day. Good evening.